From Divine Brothor of the Light, Eckhart Tolle, on Death and Dying. Death is a great opportunity because death is one way in which the formless dimension comes into this life. It's precisely at the moment of the fading of the form that the formless comes into this life. But if that is not accepted and the fading of form is denied, then it's a missed opportunity. As people around you pass away, you become increasingly aware of your own mortality. The body will dissolve. Many people still, in our civilization, they deny death. They don't want to think about it, don't want to give it any attention. There is enormous potential there for spiritual flowering, even in people who, up to the point of the beginning of the fading of the form, were completely identified with the form. It's your last chance in this incarnation as your body begins to fade, or you are becoming aware of this limited lifespan. It's your last chance to go beyond identification with form. This is true whether it is to do with your body or somebody else's body. In the proximity of death, there is always that grace hiding underneath the seemingly negative event. Death in our civilization is seen as entirely negative, as if it shouldn't be happening. Because it's denied, people are so shocked when somebody dies, as if it's not possible. We don't live with the familiarity of death as some more ancient cultures still do. The familiarity of death isn't there. Everything is hidden. The dead body is hidden. In India, you can see the dead bodies being carried through the streets and being burned in public. To the Westerners, this is terrible. As the consciousness is changing, I feel that more and more death will become an important part of the evolutionary process, the process of the arising consciousness on our planet. At any age, the form can dissolve. Even if you are very young, you may encounter death close to you. At any age, it is extremely helpful to become familiar with or comfortable with the impermanence of the physical form. I recommend to everybody to occasionally visit the cemetery. If it's a nice cemetery, that makes it more pleasant. Some cemeteries are like beautiful parks. You can walk around and feel extremely peaceful. But even if it's not nice, spiritually it is just as helpful to walk around the cemetery and contemplate the fact of life. I still do that quite often, whenever I have a chance. In Europe, in the villages and so on, you have a cemetery next to the church very often. I love walking around there. My favorite thing is reading the names on the gravestones. Sometimes if the gravestones are very old, you'll see the name is not there anymore. It got eroded by the weather. It's the contemplation of death and the acceptance of the impermanent nature of the human form that opens up, if you accept it. Don't intellectualize it. Don't come to some kind of conclusion about it. Just stay with the simple isness of the fact of the impermanence of the human form and accept that for what it is without going any further. If you go further, you get into comforting beliefs. That's very nice too, but what I am driving at is something deeper than comforting beliefs. Instead of going to some kind of deeply peaceful to contemplate death. If someone close to you dies, then there is an added dimension. You may find there is deep sadness. The form also was precious, although what you loved in the form was the formless, and yet you weep because of the fading form. There too you come to an acceptance, especially if you are already familiar with death. You already know that everything dies. Then you can accept it more easily when it happens to somebody close to you. There is still deep sadness, but then you can have the two dimensions simultaneously. The outer you weeps, the inner and most essential is deeply at peace. It comes forward almost as if it were saying there is no death, it's peace. Inspirational story. My whole life I was interested in spiritual teachings. I did yoga classes and meditation exercises. 10 years ago, my husband, who is now my ex-husband, started to listen to videos from Eckhart Tolle. At that time, I could not really grasp the content and was not interested. Years later in Africa, I saw a boy offering different books for sale to car drivers in the street. He showed me A New Earth, and I knew I must have it and read it. I got this book at a time when I was going through a tough life situation. I was far from home. I had difficulties in my relationship with a new partner, and my work conditions were stressful. I started to read and was fascinated. I enjoyed every sentence and was fully alert. From this time on, I remembered myself regularly to be in the moment. I introduced on a voluntary basis stops in the flow of my thoughts. In long meetings, I observed the spaces between the words, which allowed me to follow and intervene without any effort. I noticed rapidly that this knowledge is life-changing. Since then, I have read all the books Eckhart has written, and I find I am reading them over and over. It never gets boring, and there is always something new in it. I can confirm from my own experiences that to bring presence and non-resistance into daily life changes the quality of life and helps to overcome even very difficult obstacles. Charlotte. Inspirational quotes. When you are present, when your attention is fully in the now, presence will flow into and transform what you do. There will be a quality and power in it. You are present when what you are doing is not primarily a means to an end, money, prestige, winning, but fulfilling in itself, when there is joy and aliveness in what you do. When your attention moves into the now, there is an alertness. It is as if you are waking from the dream of thought, the dream of past and future, such clarity, such simplicity. As you listen to the thought, you feel a conscious presence, your deeper self. Behind or underneath the thought, as it were, this is the beginning of the end of involuntary and compulsive thinking. EckartTolle.com. Namaste.